She refused to be alone in the car with him, so he refused to add 20 minutes to his drive, and everyone lost it. One of his own kids called him lazy. His own child. The same child whose entire university education he paid for while working 12-hour days, 6 weeks at a time, hundreds of miles from home. Let that sink in for a second before we go any further. So here is where we are. A man spent 2 full decades grinding himself into the ground so his family could have everything. Mortgage paid off. Cars owned outright. Kids through university debt-free. Retirement funded. Emergency fund stacked. And now, at 55 years old, with a body that has absorbed 20 years of punishment, he made one decision for himself. 1. He took a desk job at the same company. Still working. Still earning. Still providing. Just not destroying himself anymore. And his reward for that? His wife is upset, his kids are disappointed, and one of them had the absolute nerve to call him lazy. I need everyone to really sit with what this man's life looked like for 20 years. 6 weeks on. 12-hour days. Then 3 weeks off. Repeat. Averaged out, that is 56 hours a week, every single week, for roughly 2 decades. He was not popping into the office and complaining about traffic. He was away from his home, away from his family, grinding in conditions that most people would not survive for a single month, let alone 20 years. Think about what that actually looks like up close. The alarm going off before sunrise in some temporary bunk or job site accommodation, far from his own bed, far from the smell of his own house, far from the ordinary sounds of his family moving around in the morning. Eating meals that were not cooked by anyone who loved him. Going to sleep tired in a way that does not wash off after one good night of rest. That kind of tired builds up in the joints, in the back, in the eyes. And then he would do it again the next day, and the day after that, and every day for 6 weeks straight before he could finally drive home and remember what it felt like to just exist inside his own life. He missed dinners. He missed weekends. He missed ordinary Tuesday evenings just sitting on the couch doing nothing. He missed the small unremarkable moments that turn out, over time, to be the ones that actually matter. All of that was traded so his family could live well. And they did live well. The budget he described is not the budget of someone being reckless or selfish. Every dollar had a purpose. Mortgage. Bills. College funds. Retirement. Emergency savings. And only after all of that was covered did he and his wife split what was left, 50-50, $1,000 each per month for themselves. That is a thoughtful, disciplined, family-first financial structure. The man clearly took his responsibilities seriously. He did not blow money on himself. He did not disappear into habits that ate the paycheck before it could reach anyone else. He built a system, stuck to it for 20 years, and delivered on every single promise that system implied. Roof over their heads. Degrees in hand. Retirement on track. That is not an accident. That is a man who treated providing as a vocation and honored it completely. Now let us talk about where things stand today, because the picture looks completely different at 55 than it did at 35. The mortgage is gone. The kids are done with school. The cars are paid for and recent. The retirement accounts are funded. The emergency fund exists. Both he and his wife still get their $1,000 a month. By any reasonable measure, this family is in good shape. The heavy lifting is finished. He built something solid and it is still standing. Most people spend their entire working lives chasing the kind of stability this man has already delivered. The finish line he spent 20 years running toward is right there. He crossed it. And instead of being met with recognition, he is being met with pressure. So what exactly is the problem? The problem is that his adult children, both of whom have degrees and jobs and live at home rent-free, cannot afford luxury cars and large apartments right this moment. And instead of looking at that situation and saying, okay, We raised capable adults who just need a little more time. His wife is hinting that he should chip in from his personal spending money to speed up that timeline. On top of the free housing. On top of the free food. On top of everything he already built. These are not children. These are employed adults living rent-free in a fully paid-off house, with every foundational advantage already handed to them, asking for more runway at the expense of a man whose body is finally starting to send him the bill for 2 decades of hard use. Here is the part that really gets me. His wife has been giving her own $1,000 a month to the kids. That is her choice and she is entitled to make it. But there is a massive difference between choosing to give your own money and pressuring your partner to give theirs. She did not just offer her share. She started hinting. And hinting is a very specific kind of pressure. It is the kind that pretends to be a suggestion while actually being an expectation. It is the kind that leaves no clean surface to push back against, because nothing was technically said, nothing was technically asked, and yet the message arrives completely intact. He felt it clearly enough to push back. That means the pressure was real, even if it never took the form of a direct demand. And the fact that it came through hints rather than honesty says something worth paying attention to. What his wife seems to be missing is that the reason she was able to stay home for all those years, the reason she had the luxury of raising the kids and managing the household without needing her own income, is because he carried that financial weight entirely on his own shoulders. She did not have to sit through a job interview at 32 years old or figure out a commute or navigate workplace politics while also trying to be present at home. She had the option of being fully present at home because he was fully present at work, at the cost of being fully absent from everything else. That arrangement worked because he was willing to sacrifice his time, his body, and his proximity to his family. He was the one sitting in that bunk, in that accommodation, in that job site far from home, running the hours so she did not have to. Now that sacrifice has limits. His body has limits. And at 55, after everything he gave, he is allowed to say enough. The office job is not laziness. It is a completely rational decision made by a man who understands that continuing at the previous pace would likely destroy his health long before he gets to enjoy the retirement he spent 20 years building. He looked at the math and he looked at his body and he made the only decision that makes sense. A better hourly rate, 40 hours a week, no more extended absences, no more 6-week stretches of sleeping away from home. Still contributing. Still showing up. Still doing everything a reasonable person could ask of him. That is not a man checking out. That is a man finally being reasonable with himself after 2 decades of being unreasonable with himself for everyone else's benefit. Now I do want to acknowledge something honestly, because it matters. His wife spent 20 years raising children and managing a household. That is real work. It does not come with a paycheck, but it is not nothing. She made sacrifices too, different ones, but real ones. She was the one holding things together on that end, being the present parent while he was the absent provider, handling the daily texture of family life largely on her own. There is a loneliness in that role that often goes unspoken. Her frustration about the income change is not completely without basis, especially if she feels like the kids still need support and she cannot provide enough on her own. Those feelings deserve some acknowledgement, and he would probably be wise to give them that, genuinely and without defensiveness. But acknowledgement is different from agreement. Feeling something does not automatically make it right. And what she is asking, whether directly or through hints, is for a man who already gave 20 years of physical sacrifice to now give up his personal money too, in order to subsidize adult children who have jobs and free housing. That is a bridge too far. There is a version of this conversation where she expresses her worry about the kids and he listens and they figure out together whether any small adjustment makes sense. But that is not what is happening. What is happening is pressure. And he has already given more than enough to have earned the right to hold his line. The comment from the kid about him being lazy is the part that reveals the most. That comment tells you everything about what these young adults have internalized. They grew up benefiting from his sacrifice without fully understanding what it cost him. To them, the money was just there. The house was just there. The degrees were just there. They never saw the 12-hour days. They never felt the weight of a 6-week stretch away from home. They received the result without witnessing the process, and so they developed a completely distorted sense of what is normal and what is owed. They looked at a man who worked himself to the edge of his physical limits for 20 years and, the moment he eased off, reached for the word lazy. That word. That particular word. Aimed at that particular man. It is almost incomprehensible. And that distortion is not entirely their fault. It is a consequence of being raised in a household where everything was provided so thoroughly that nothing ever felt scarce or difficult. When abundance is the only reality you have ever known, you stop being able to see the machinery behind it. You stop understanding that someone built all of this, deliberately, painfully, at real cost. But being understandable does not make it acceptable. A grown adult with a job calling their father lazy for switching to a 40-hour workweek is not just ungrateful. It is genuinely embarrassing. It reflects a failure to see another human being clearly, and that failure is especially pointed when the human being in question is the one who made your entire life possible. His response, telling his wife to get a job if she wants to give the kids more money, was blunt. Maybe sharper than it needed to be. Said in a moment of frustration, probably carrying the weight of feeling unseen and undervalued after everything he had done. But it was not cruel. It was honest. She is 46 years old. The kids are grown and employed and living at home for free. There is nothing stopping her from entering the workforce if she wants to increase the household income or support the kids more generously. That is a real option available to a capable adult woman in the middle of her life. It is not a punishment. It is not an insult. It is a reasonable suggestion from a man who has been the sole earner for 2 decades and would simply like some company in that role, or at the very least, some acknowledgement that he cannot be the only one expected to keep stretching. Let me be completely clear about where I stand on this. This man is not the asshole. Not even slightly. He fulfilled every obligation he took on. He provided housing, education, transportation, financial security, and 20 years of his physical health. His kids are adults with degrees and jobs. His wife is middle-aged, healthy, and capable of working. The mortgage is gone. The bills are covered. Everyone in that house is fed and sheltered. He earned the right to work 40 hours a week. He earned the right to spend his personal money on a garage. He earned the right to protect his body before it gives out entirely. And he absolutely earned the right to expect that his adult children would look at everything he built and feel gratitude instead of entitlement. The hill he has chosen to die on is the right hill. Some hills are worth it. This one absolutely is. He worked himself to the bone for 2 decades so his family would never have to struggle, and the moment he decides to stop sacrificing his health for overtime he does not need, they call it laziness. No. That word does not apply here. Laziness is what you call it when someone refuses to do what they reasonably should. This man already did everything he reasonably should, and then some. What he is doing now is not laziness. It is justice. He worked 56 hours a week for 20 years and his wife called him lazy for finally slowing down. She slammed the car door. Actually slammed it. After asking this man to add 20 extra minutes to an already hour-long drive home because she did not feel safe being alone in the car with him, and after he politely said no, she got out at the wrong house and slammed the door like he had done something to her. I genuinely had to read that twice. Okay, so let us build this out properly because there are a few layers here. Our narrator is a guy who drives everywhere when this friend group hangs out. That is just the established dynamic. He is the driver. He lives an hour north of everyone else. They all live pretty close to each other. When the night ends, he drops people off and then makes that hour-long trip home. That is the deal and it has been working fine. Nobody questions it, nobody complains, everyone just accepts that this is how the nights end, and this guy absorbs the extra distance without making it into a thing. That kind of quiet reliability is actually pretty rare in a friend group and worth noticing. One night, his good friend Joe brought along a woman named Amy. New to the narrator, first time meeting. They all watched a movie and went bowling. Normal, casual, pleasant evening by the sounds of it. Nothing weird happened. No red flags went off. Just four people hanging out and doing the kind of low-stakes socializing that is supposed to be completely stress-free. The narrator had no reason to be on guard, no reason to feel like the night was anything other than what it appeared to be. He probably drove them all out feeling relaxed, maybe even glad to have a new face in the group. And at the end of the night, Sandra asked if he could drop Amy home. He said yes, no problem. No hesitation, no conditions, just the easy generosity of someone used to being the person who makes things convenient for everyone else. Here is where the geography starts to matter. The narrator had already mentally mapped the most logical route. Drop Joe first, then Sandra, then Amy, then continue north toward home. That is the order that makes the most physical sense given where everyone lives. He did not announce this plan in advance, which in hindsight maybe would have saved everyone a headache, but there was no reason at the time to think a logical drop-off route would become a negotiation. He was probably running through it in his head the same way anyone does when they know a drive is coming, just quietly working out the cleanest path home. The kind of low-level planning you do automatically when you have been doing this long enough that it feels like habit. He drops Joe. Then he heads toward Sandra's place. And this is when he notices something is off. Amy and Sandra are texting each other while sitting in the same car. Right there, inches apart, choosing to communicate through screens instead of words. They are whispering too. He gets that feeling, the one you get when you can tell people are talking about you but you cannot prove it, when the energy in the room shifts in a way that makes your shoulders tighten and your awareness sharpen even though you cannot point to a single concrete thing that changed. He keeps driving. He does not say anything. He just watches the road and waits. Then Sandra tells him he made a wrong turn and Amy's house is the other way. He explains the route. Perfectly reasonable explanation. And that is when Amy tells him the truth. She does not feel safe being alone in the car with him. Not because of anything he did. Not because of anything he said. Not because of a look or a comment or a moment during the evening that made her uncomfortable. Solely because he is a man she does not know well. That is the whole reason. And now it is sitting in the car with all of them, taking up all the air. Okay. I want to pause here and be fair, because I think fairness actually matters in this conversation. Women have real reasons to be cautious around men they do not know. That is not a made-up anxiety. It is rooted in real experiences that real women have had. Being in a car with a stranger, or near stranger, in the dark, going somewhere unfamiliar, is a situation a lot of women have learned to be careful about. That caution comes from somewhere real and it should not just be dismissed as irrational. I am not going to do that, and I do not think it would be honest to pretend the concern has no basis at all. But here is the thing. Being cautious is one thing. What Amy was asking for is another thing entirely. She was not asking to call a cab. She was not asking Sandra to ride with her for that last stretch. She was not asking to be dropped off somewhere public and well lit where she could wait safely. She was asking this specific man, who had already said yes to driving her home as a favor, to now rearrange his entire route in a way that added 20 minutes of driving in the wrong direction, purely so she would not have to sit alone with him for what was probably no more than 10 minutes of road time. And she did not mention any of this before getting in the car. She let the whole evening happen. She got in, settled into the back seat, and only revealed her concern once they were already moving and the route she preferred was no longer being followed. That is the part that complicates her position significantly, because it means the person being asked to absorb the inconvenience had absolutely no opportunity to weigh in before the situation was already in motion. He could not have made a different choice at the start of the night because he was never given the information he would have needed to make one. He said no. Not aggressively, not rudely by his account, just no. Calm and direct. He explained that he was not willing to add 20 minutes to a drive that was already an hour long. That is a completely reasonable position from a man sitting in his own car, doing a favor he never had to agree to in the first place. 20 extra minutes might not sound like much in isolation, but in context it is a significant ask. You are already doing someone a favor by driving them across town at the end of a long night. Asking the person doing the favor to go 20 minutes out of their way, in the wrong direction, because of a discomfort that has nothing to do with anything they actually did, is asking a lot. It is actually asking quite a lot. They kept pushing. Both Amy and Sandra. The whole rest of the drive was apparently uncomfortable because they would not let it go, filling the car with that specific kind of pressure that is hard to describe but very easy to feel, the kind where every moment of silence feels loaded and every glance in the rearview mirror carries weight. He held his position. He did not fold, did not sigh and reroute just to make the tension stop, did not decide that keeping the peace was worth swallowing the inconvenience. Amy got out at Sandra's house, slammed the door hard enough to make a statement, and that was that. Then Joe called the next day and sided with the girls, which I imagine felt like a second gut punch after already sitting through a tense and uncomfortable ride home alone with his own thoughts. Here is my honest read on the whole thing. Amy's discomfort was real, but her solution was not fair. If she had genuine concerns about being alone with someone she did not know, the time to raise that was before getting in the car, or she could have arranged her own way home from the start, or asked Sandra to come along for that last leg of the trip. There were multiple options available to her that did not involve asking the driver to significantly extend his already long night and then responding with hostility when he reasonably declined. The door slam is what really closes the case for me. That was not the reaction of someone who was scared. A scared person does not slam doors. A scared person is relieved to be out of the situation. That was the reaction of someone who was angry that they did not get their way, who wanted the last word even if the last word was a sound instead of a sentence. Fear and anger can overlap, I understand that, but slamming a car door after someone politely declined to add 20 minutes to their drive is not a proportional response to feeling unsafe. It is a statement of indignation. And the statement it made was that she felt entitled to the accommodation she asked for, and when she did not get it, she directed that frustration at the one person who had been absorbing inconvenience on everyone's behalf all night long. So where do I land on this? He is not the asshole. He agreed to drive her. He was taking the logical route. He declined a significant and last-minute change to his plans. He did not yell, he did not threaten, he did not make her feel unsafe through any actual behavior. He just said no to an inconvenient request. And he was punished for it with a slammed door and a phone call from Joe telling him he should have just done it. No. The right answer here is not to teach people that if they pressure you hard enough in the car you will eventually change your plans to appease them. The right answer is exactly what he did. Hold the reasonable position, complete the agreed favor as planned, and let the people who are upset about it work through their own feelings. He owes Amy a safe ride home, which she got. He does not owe her a custom itinerary designed around an anxiety she never mentioned until they were already driving. If Amy wants to feel safer when going out with people she does not know well, that is a legitimate goal and there are real ways to achieve it. She could have asked Sandra to stay with her. She could have booked a ride share. She could have had a conversation at the start of the night about how drop-offs would work. Any of those would have been perfectly reasonable. What was not reasonable was saying nothing, getting in the car, and then expecting a near stranger to reroute his entire drive home on the spot and be grateful for the opportunity. He said no. That was the right call. So which one of these hit harder for you, the guy who gave 20 years and got called lazy, or the guy who got a door slammed for saying no to a 20-minute detour? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more of these drop a like and subscribe, it actually helps a lot.